Hey everybody, Chris Waters here, and in this video series we're going to be looking at the 99 most common questions that Australian hunters have. This is actually part 2 of that series. In the first part of the series we looked at firearm licensing, storage and firearm safety. In this video we're specifically looking at hunting related questions. Now, if you do have a specific question in mind, timestamps to all of the 99 questions are linked below, so you can go there, check that out first, jump straight to the answer that you're looking for. If you have a question that's not answered in that list, not one of the 99, again, drop it in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you, and I'll try my best to answer. Now, if you learned anything from this video, I encourage you, share it on to a hunter that you know, whether they're experienced or brand new. I'm sure they can learn something from it too. Now, full disclaimer as well, make sure you do your own due diligence and research when it comes to firearm related or hunting related questions. Laws are different for states and territories. Maybe laws have changed since this video was recorded. That's really, really important. And finally, lastly, before we get into the questions, if you're more of a reader, you can download the full 99 questions and their answers in the PDF resource available at the Australian Hunters Club website. I'll link that below. Otherwise, let's start answering some questions. How long does it usually take for a new hunter to get their first big game animal? The answer to this question varies greatly depending on whether you've got mentors or people who are taking you out to spots where they know. If you're a completely fresh new hunter and you're going out on your own in state forest or private property and you don't know anything, maybe expect between 12 months and 24 months before you get your first animal, because you'll be making a lot of mistakes. If you have help or advice, or you're given GPS coordinates, or you have a little bit of knowledge or wisdom, that time frame might be shorter. How many times should I hunt the same area unsuccessfully before I change locations? My personal rule is if I don't see game animals, I don't see their prints, I don't see their scat, which is their poo. If I don't see tree rubs or wallows or well-used game trails, I'll just move on. I'll go to a different location. There's no point hitting the same location time and time again if there's no evidence of animals in that area. There's enough state forest in Tasmania, Victoria, New South Wales, if you're in those areas, to go and just find another spot. If you're in somewhere where there's only private property, that's a bit harder. You probably want to persevere on those properties a little bit longer, but otherwise, just change things up and go somewhere else. How important is the direction or the strength of the wind when hunting? Of all the factors involved in hunting that will make or break a hunt, the wind is probably the most important. If the wind is blowing at your back forward, don't even bother hunting in that direction. There's absolutely 0 point. Animals are too clever, too smart, you won't even see them. They'll move away before you can even hear them. You want to make sure the wind is consistently and strongly blowing in your face. Then you'll have a chance for your scent not to spread forward, and you'll have a chance of sneaking up on some animals. What signs should I be looking for that indicate animals have been in an area? So if you're looking for deer, you're looking for things like wallows, for well-used game trails, for deer scat, for deer prints. When you're looking for other animals like goats, mainly what you're doing is you're listening more than anything and looking for prints and scat. And then finally, when it comes to hunting predators, you're looking for things like carcasses. What can you tell me about animal prints? Well, first and foremost, animal prints are generally the most visible after it's rained, just after it's rained. And that's because the ground's had time to absorb that moisture, it's become a little bit spongy, the animal's foot hits the dirt and it makes a decent imprint. So the depth of the imprint can tell you how big the animal is. If it's heavier, it's obviously going to get pushed deeper, or if it's fresher, it'll be more defined. And you can tell a more defined print by something that's just kind of stamped and quickly moved on, or stamped in dusty soil. That can change things as well. Now, you also have to take into consideration the fact that when it's rained, it's probably going to wash away old sign. So what you're seeing after a rain is new sign. Now, something else to think about as well is if you find a blade of grass that's been imprinted at the base of that print, well, if it hasn't popped up yet and it hasn't withered, it teaches you that it's quite a fresh print. The other things that you can learn is the size of the herd that's moving through the area, whether it's male or female animals. You can also tell the direction that they're going in, or whether or not they were startled or calm or just making their way feeding across an area. What is the best time to hunt deer? The best time to hunt deer is right before first light or right after sunset. Otherwise, if you're spotlighting or using thermals, any time during the night is a good time. Can you hunt with dogs in Australia? Yes, you can hunt with dogs in Australia. There's a few different hunting techniques that people use and different breeds that they use. For instance, pig dogging is very common in Queensland and in New South Wales. In fact, there's 170 state forests that allow for pig dogging in New South Wales and 19 specifically that allow hunting with dogs at night. In Victoria, you can use hounds or you can use pointers for deer, mainly for sambar deer, and the only restriction is that you can't use them for hog deer. Is there a limit to how many dogs you can hunt with in Australia? Yes, there is, and different states and territories have their own different rules, but Victoria, for instance, only allows for 2 dogs per person. Do you have any quick tips when it comes to shooting? So first and foremost, you need to make sure that you control your breathing. Everyone's a sucker for this. Everyone needs to learn this. You get really excited, your blood pressure increases, and it makes you all wobbly. So to slow your breathing down, make sure that your hands are relaxed. I often find myself looking at my hands right before a shot, and I'm really tight, and if my knuckles are white, I just loosen my hands, move my fingers, increase blood circulation, then get ready for the shot. Breathe in. Slowly breathe out. Halfway through that shot, you slowly squeeze the trigger. Don't pull it, otherwise you'll lift the gun. You slowly squeeze and follow through. Make sure you always follow through right with that trigger pull, otherwise again, you'll lift your gun. Once the shot happens, make sure you keep your eye in the scope looking at the animal so you can positively identify what happens next. Whether you hit the animal, whether you hit a clod of dirt and spray that up, whether you hit a tree. It's all useful information that you then need to know as to what you do next. And the final tip and final trick that I have is make sure you listen for the impact. The impact of a bullet hitting the chest cavity of an animal is very different from it hitting a tree or a clod of dirt. Again, that's more information that's going to help you in the recovery of that animal. How do I scout a hunting area effectively? First and foremost, it starts with pulling up a map, whether that's on Google Maps or a physical map. If it's in Google Maps, have it in satellite mode. Pick a grid that looks nice. It has good country, that has fringe areas, that has water, maybe a stream or a river running through it. Map it out, decide in advance how far you're going to move through that area. And then once you get there, if you're just scouting and you're not actually thinking about hunting, bring your rifle, your bow, but just move quickly. Don't worry about stalking slowly. If you move through quickly and it's doing a recce, what we call a scouting mission, it's okay to bump animals, it's okay to lose them, because at least then you know that you go back the next day, you can go back and hunt them and you know where they'll be. Too often I've wasted time scouting locations by moving too quickly and I haven't covered enough ground. Just be ruthless about it. You can always slow down the next day and actually take your time. Okay, time to take a bit of a breather. We've answered a few questions. Clearly, you're still interested. You're still here. So before we go any further, I just want to take 1 minute to quickly tell you about the Australian Hunters Club, why it's a fantastic club and why I think you should join. Then we'll get right back to the questions. Are you someone who wants to learn more about hunting? Are you looking for a positive and optimistic hunting community you can join? Well, maybe you should check out the Australian Hunters Club. In fact, let's skip the maybe. I want to personally invite you to join, like me, as a member. Members get discounts on leading hunting brands and products, as well as discounts on Australia's best guided hunts. We give away professionally guided hunts and hunting products every single month. Members host hunts and events. We have an epic annual camp every year. You can even find other hunters in your area using our online members directory. To learn more or sign up, head over to australianhunters.com.au and hopefully I see you at an event soon. All right, back to the questions. When is the best time of the year to hunt deer in Australia? So the first cold snap after autumn is generally the best time to hunt deer in Australia. That's when the breeding season's about to start, the deer are getting ready to breed, the bucks are getting vocal and easier to find, they're croaking, they're roaring, they're fighting. That's the most exciting time of the year to hunt and probably the easiest time of the year. Now, in Victoria, that generally happens around the Easter weekend, end of March, start of April, and then that follows with what's called the roar, which is when the red stags start to do their thing and start to make noise and breed. Basically, what you'll find is that the further north you go, the more delayed the season is as it moves through April. But it's around that April time that's the best time to hunt deer. What are the different hunting styles or methods? There's a whole range of different hunting styles in Australia that you can do. The most common is probably stalking. Then you have long distance hunting. You can hunt from a tree stand or a blind. You can hunt with baiting on private property. You can also hunt with hounds. You can hunt from a buggy. You can sit at a wallow and just wait. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can hunt. Can you hunt when it's raining? 100% can you hunt when it's raining. It's actually a fantastic time to hunt because the rain dampens the soil and makes it a little bit quieter to move around, especially the areas where it's a little bit crunchy, and it also dampens the sense of smell. So you can get closer to animals when it's raining. So as long as you have some rain jackets on and some comfortable gear, there's no reason why you shouldn't be hunting in the rain. Should you shoot at a deer that's running away? No, you shouldn't shoot at a deer that's running away. It's both unethical and it's just impractical. You won't actually have a great shot of that animal. You're better off shooting at it when it's bedded down or standing still feeding. What is the earliest time that you can shoot an animal in state forest? 30 minutes before first light, but there's no reason why you can't hike into the area that you're wanting to hunt before that. What is the latest time that you can shoot an animal in state forest? 30 minutes after last light is the latest time that you can shoot an animal, but again, you can take all the time that you want butchering and processing that animal and hiking it out after it's dark. Can you stalk or hunt on a fire track or a four-wheel drive track in state forest? No, legally you're not allowed to have a loaded rifle hunting or stalking on a fire track or a four-wheel drive track in state forest. The reason is because cars can be moving through those areas or hunters getting to other hunting locations, and it's also not technically fair for the animals if they're moving through those corridors. Are you allowed to spotlight or use thermals in state forest? No, you're not. Can you have a loaded firearm in a state forest? Yes. Can you shoot an animal if it's just over the fence on private property and then drag it over? No, you can't. That's immoral and wrong and despicable. Are there deer hunting seasons in Australia? So for the most part, you can hunt sambar, rusa, red, chital, and fallow, the main deer species in Australia, all year round without a bag limit. Hunt as many of them as you want, hunt as often as you want. The exception to that rule is that you can only hunt sambar with dogs when you're using hounds to hunt them from the 1st of April to the end of November. And then the other exception is that hog deer have a limited season in the month of April, and you can only take one male and one female during that period, and you have to have tickets. What do you do if you've wounded a deer? If you've taken a shot on a deer and you've wounded it and it's run away, the best thing that you can do is just stop for a minute. Just wait 10, 15, 20 minutes. Give that deer a chance to move away a couple hundred meters, lay down, and more often than not, it will just bleed out and it will die. Now, what you then need to do is after that 20 minutes, go to the point where you shot the deer, where the impact happened. Mark a tree near that location with a brightly colored ribbon, find the blood trail, and slowly make your way towards where the deer is following that blood trail. Now, if you lose the blood trail, go back to the last place where you saw it, mark that location again with a brightly colored ribbon, and make small concentric circles out further out until you find the blood trail again or you find the wounded deer. Be ready as well to put an end to that deer if you do find it. Is it okay to wound a deer and then start the search for the deer the next day? No, this is considered unethical and poor form. The only exception to this is if you've shot a deer at last light, you should still make an effort to go out and find that deer under torchlight. But if it gets to the point where you've done it for a few hours and it's clearly not practical, you can then go back the next day. If you're in a cold area, you might be able to recover the deer and the animal and the meat. If you're in a hot area, it's more than likely that the deer is passed and is spoiled, but you should still go try and find it. Can you camp in state forest in Australia? Yes, you can camp in state forest within Australia. Generally, most state forests have camping areas that you can make use of, and they recommend that you do so. However, if one is not accessible or practical, you can camp somewhere else in state forest. There's no problems with that. Can you hunt at night in Victoria, Tasmanian, or New South Wales state forests? You can't hunt at night in Victoria or Tasmania. That's completely off the cards, but there are 19 state forests within New South Wales that you can hunt pigs with dogs at night. What do you do if you see another hunter in the bush? Well, first and foremost, it's important that you make your presence known without startling that hunter. The last thing you want to do is get mistaken for an animal and end up getting shot. It's important as well that when you're approaching that hunter that you do make sure that you take the round out of your weapon, maybe even the magazine. It's just a courtesy and it makes things safe. And then you can have a conversation with them. What's probably the most important thing is find out where they're going, where they've been. You can talk about where you're hunting and where you've been, just to avoid ruining each other's hunts. Then you can go on your merry way. Is it rude to ask people for hunting spots and locations? Look, it all comes down to how well you know the person and how you ask. I don't think it's okay for a complete stranger to reach out to you and ask for GPS locations on your favorite hunting spots. That's not okay. That's not cool. But it is okay and reasonable to ask a stranger about a general location and ask whether a certain state forest is fruitful or even a certain part of a state forest is fruitful. If you have a good friend and you spend a lot of time with them, you can probably go deeper and ask a little bit more information. More often than not, you'll find that they actually take you to the spot and show you around. Alright, so that's this particular group of questions answered. Just a reminder, the full 99 questions are linked and timestamped below, as well as the other videos in this series, so you can go check that out in the description below. And if you did learn something, I encourage you to share these with another hunter. I'm sure they'll learn something too. And if you haven't gone and checked out the Australian Hunters Club, I want to personally invite you to go do that now. It's a fantastic club. It's a club that I'm a part of. So many great benefits of being involved. Check it out at australianhunters.com.au. And finally, if you haven't gone gone and watched each of the episodes in the Australian Huntsman Season 1, definitely go do that right now. I'll drop a link to the playlist in the description below where you can check out each of the full-length 10 episodes. I had a great time pulling this season together in this last year with my friends, hunting around Australia, goats and deer. It's definitely worth checking out. Otherwise, hopefully I see you in a video soon.